Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ultimate Schmoedown Aftershow, the only show here on the John Roca YouTube channel that breaks down the previous week in Schmoedown. If you couldn't tell, my brain's still turning on a little bit because we're at a different time today, a little bit earlier in the day, so that way we can talk about these matches and have a wonderful guest on ahead of the pay-per-view event tonight. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. First off, we need to introduce the second half of that plural ourselves I was talking about. Everyone, please say hello to Boggs. How you doing, man?
Hey, everyone. How are we doing? Big weekend, big day in particular, with a New York live event, first one since Atlanta, I believe, last year, like January. So shout out to everyone who's there or going there, enjoy the event. And then, can't wait to speak to our guest, super appreciate him coming on. Even though he's live in New York, he's going to join us to review some of his matches.
That's right. Nothing but the best for the viewers here of the Ultimate Schmoedown Aftershow. And speaking of, if you want to be able to help us out and keep this show going, there's a couple different ways to do that. Streamlabs and Super Chats. You see the Streamlab link up top right there. Also, seeing up there is the Patreon link. If you become a patron of the Outlaw Nation, you can have your questions either read out or said by you to our special guest coming up a little bit later. But also, we love it just when y'all comment along, chat with us, folks like Haskell, like Tyler Hackner, like Ryan Christensen, like Darren Wright. How y'all doing today? But we also like to read out the comments that are left underneath the video of every last week's previous show, something like that. Cool. Normally, this is Soul's job, but Soul, God bless her, she's away. She's taking a little bit of a holiday right now. So it's just going to be us two boys. I forget, what was our couple? Did we decide on what our couple name is?
No, we didn't. We need to do an official vote for it, but I think it's I don't remember. Is it Jogs?
Was it Bargs? Jogs?
I mean, yeah, sure.
One of the two.
Whatever people in the chat want, yeah. We'll give the people what they want, John.
That's right. That's what we're all about. Anyway, we do have a couple chats here from last week's episode, starting with one of our incredible guests, King Khan, who wrote, in small correction, the Viola Davis cameo in Ocean's 11 is now listed on Wikipedia, but IMDb still doesn't include her in the cast list, so Griffin at least stumped one major website. This kid isn't crazy. He's a maniac, and he's playing tonight. So, I mean, yes, how many more, IMDb breaking facts do you think Griffey is going to be bringing to the table tonight?
Who knows? We'll see.
Oof, absolutely wild. Thank you, producer Mike. All right, that's one vote for sure. We also had Jeremy Miller commenting, King Khan was great for a third time, and Bibbs is one of the best players / sweetest people. Could not agree more. He was an absolute gem. We were very blessed to have him on. And then Sean Wingblade coming back. Hey, hi. Ken here, back again. Please don't speak ill of my wife, Karen, but I'm glad you see me, John Barr. Yes, I talked with Sean. We did establish that, yes, Ken is the male version of Karen. It is important to get that all ironed out. But, yeah, check out Sean over on the FCL League as well, and then also the stuff he's doing on Flick and Reel. But enough about other people's shows. Let's talk about this show and what we've got to talk about, which is some great Schmoedown matches. Since our special guest is in 2 of the 3 matches that we're going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about this wonderful Star Wars match first. Hey, just to confirm, we're going to be talking about what happens in these 3 matches, so if you don't want them spoiled before you watch them, turn away. Put this on mute. Avert your eyes as we start talking about this Star Wars match of the tournament. Joseph Scrimshaw of Corruption, the first of 3 Corruption matches that happened this week, not including the 4th pay-per-view tonight, which is Corruption on Corruption. But this was Joseph Scrimshaw going up against the Finstock Exchange's gold leader. But to really break down this match, I got to toss it on over to Boggs.
Yes, sir. Let's do it. Yeah, it's definitely a Corruption week. What the hell? They're in every match and the pay-per-view.
They keep winning. That's the issue.
Yes, they got killers. So yeah, they're all over the Schmoedown at the minute. But yeah, going into this match, obviously, the return of Scrimshaw. He's not played in such a long time against, of course, that I think the sudden death loss against Di Malonte in the tournament last year. So he's returning again for Corruption, and obviously gold leader. Losing in the final of the previous tournament earlier this year against Harper, of course, who went on to win the title. So yeah, interesting kind of matchup. And then strong round one for gold leader. He only slipped on the last Jedi question. Showing the man hasn't missed many questions at all in all of his matches played so far. And then Scrimshaw, he did miss 3. And it was pretty much the biggest difference in the match. So at this point, it finished 9-7. Round 2, they both do go perfect. Scrimshaw does go multiple choice a couple of times, and obviously gold leader does go perfect in his round 2 with the Revenge of the Sith. And then round 3, again, they all go perfect as well. So it just shows that, you against, it just kind of a couple of things that I mentioned last week that, having maybe such a long break for Scrimshaw maybe just hasn't kept him as potentially as sharp in terms of the modern game, in terms of, the difference between now and last year. Because just a couple of questions in round 1, obviously he missed. Other than that, he played really stellar. And it also goes to the second point that I made, that I kind of wish he's like 1-5 now, and he's super good as well. So I really wish they played the other people who have losing records before going into a tournament. Even if you want to call it a play-in match, it's just a way for them to, evenly match up, and then going into a tournament against the killer, you will have some form, some confidence. So I'm just going to reiterate that point. But overall, good match, good personalities. Obviously Moose Haas stepping in for gold leader, and Shannon all going back and forth. We had Guy and Ellis on the desk as well. So all around, just fun match. Just a fun midweek match. But John, please, your overall thoughts on the match and any kind of standout points.
Absolutely. I think my biggest kind of standout point is sort of similar to what you were saying with Joseph Scrimshaw. Dude is definitely good. I mean, he took gold leader to his 5-pointer despite having been out of play for like over a year, I guess, because I think last year's Star Wars tournament, it was only the one, and it happened in like May, as opposed to this one, which is now happening in the fall. So it's very much like a long time period where Scrimshaw's not been playing. So like the fact that he did as well as he did, super admirable, proves why he has been like in title contention multiple times. But also like the Star Wars division is one of the divisions that has just continuously been getting like honed down and incredibly more deadly. And especially this tournament, like we've been talking about how both the Star Wars and the Inner Geekdom tournaments this year have really stepped up the game when it comes to round 1 questions in particular. And I think this is just one of those instances where it's a little bit of like old school, new school. You know what I mean? It's sort of like how last year when Ken was like coming in as, again, one of the like most highly celebrated Star Wars competitors, and he wound up getting beaten by Ace, who would then go on to win the tournament as a whole. I think Scrimshaw, it's one of those things where I think he would really, if he buckled down and like super studied hard, I think he could easily be right back up in another title match. But I don't think that's really Scrimshaw's MO. I think he's just kind of like, yeah, I'm a Star Wars fan. I'm pretty good at this trivia thing, and I'll just see how far that can take me. And in this instance, when you're going up against one of these like fearsome Finstock rookies, it just wasn't enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I feel the same. Like, I feel like if he trained as much as other people and studied as much as other people, I think he's been doing this for longer and things like that. So, and he kind of has more experience than a lot of people, with winning records or who have played less matches. So I do feel like he could, if he wanted to, but he's one of them where I feel like he plays for fun. And as his main reason to play, because he said it a couple of times, he's really enjoying himself. He does the whole kind of Jedi, stoic character thing. So, I hope he doesn't go anywhere, because he obviously is 1-5. So that must be a bit rough on yourself, knowing that how good you are and how much you know. So hopefully he can get to balance that out. But he's definitely really good. And what about the next match? Obviously, we have gold leader against Laura Kelly. Thoughts going into that one? Yeah, that's a tough match. Only 3 rounds. It's like whoever slips first. It seemed like that might cost them. But just to answer Ryan's comment in the chat there, what time does the pay-per-view start? It starts at 4 p.m. PST, scheduled to start that time. Who knows? They could do a little thing before, as they do, like interview people, whatever. But 4 p.m. PST, which is why we're going this time, because we don't want to clash with that. But and we want to watch it ourselves. But yeah, John, what about you? Kelly against gold leader, tough.
I really don't know. It's tough. I feel like this was one of the ones where I had to like go on the whole like Schmoedown website, check out those statistics, watch, not watch back both matches in full, but like take note of like what the final scores were coming out of this round one. Cause like, oh my gosh, it's tough because like Laura Kelly, she had a good title match against Imolanta, even though she didn't quite win it. Gold Leader had a great match against Thomas Harper, even though he didn't quite make it. So, like, I think if I had to edge it right now, I would edge it to Gold Leader. But thankfully, I have a little bit of time to, like, really marinate on that, think things over a little bit. Part of my rationale for that is something I've talked a lot about on the show previous, which is that faction momentum thing, where it's, like, definitely, I think it's a little bit, not easier, but I think there is something to be like, hell yeah, I'm part of a winning faction right now. And it's sort of like, if I lose, whatever, my faction stays on top. Whereas like sometimes that mindset of having the extra pressure, if you're on a team like Swag, which is not doing so hot right now, that extra pressure of like, oh no, like not only do I need to win this, but also my whole faction kind of relies on needing some of these points. Like that can be a lot, it's that compounding pressure thing that can start to weigh you down a little bit. And I think that's also part of why Scrimshaw was kind of looser in this game, because as much as it would have been nice to get a little bit further in this Star Wars tournament, Corruption has a guaranteed, 7 points, I think, tonight with the singles belt on the line. And then hypothetically, another 7 points if they're able to win whoever winds up challenging for it next. Mike Kalinowski currently holding the Inner Geekdom belt. If he wins against Amaru, that's like a guaranteed 8 points or so. Deception still in the teams tournament. 2 different people in the singles tournament. There's a lot. Jason Earhart in the chat over here. Why, John? More pressure is on Gold Leader. Laura is playing for herself. That's the thing, though, is that, to a certain extent, I mean, I guess Swag has already kind of said, like, we're just trying to play spoiler at this point. But I feel like Gold Leader, he's already made it to, like, the finals of one Star Wars tournament this year. I feel like he's somebody that's been kind of continuously getting looser and looser. I think there's something about that rookie factor where you see it a lot of times. There are certain rookies, like, within their first year, it's really hard to get a beat on them and take them down. It's something that we see, like, it's something that we saw with Thomas Harper. It's something that we saw with Adam Collins. Like, there is something to the rookie factor where it's like, if you're a newbie that's able to go on a tear, sometimes it's very hard to be able to knock them down until, like, the next year where it's like, okay, now this person's been around long enough that, like, they're not on that, like, oh, brand new dark horse untouchable type wave. Obviously, I could be wrong. Like, if there's, I definitely don't want to make it sound like I doubt Laura Kelly's Star Wars ability. Like, no, this is going to be a barn burner. And that's why I said I'm only edging it to Gold Leader right now, not calling it. It's going to be a tough one. Do you think I'm off my rocker, Boggs? What do you think about all my thoughts?
No, it's like a 50-50 match. So either way, you're not wrong, basically. But I think what maybe Jason's alluding to as well, that she has a lot more big game experience, like title shots, 5-rounders. He's absolutely won a tournament this year, but I think she has more experience. So he is experienced, especially, this year, and now he's played, 3 rounds, he's pretty solid. But she does have more experience. So like, I do get that. And, playing for herself, yeah, I'm not sure. So I do hear what you're saying there. You didn't say it literally, but like a winning mentality against like a losing mentality. Like, I'm not talking about her specifically, but, Swag, obviously they're not doing too great this year. So that's interesting as well. A lot of different, dynamics going on. I can just imagine like even like Gucci's, if he's there for that match, like his confidence going in, like with Winston, like, is he going to be, are you a bit reserved now going in, or because, you might take a loss and not get any points? I don't know. There's a lot of interesting things going on, but no, hear your point. I'm not picking now. Those too far out. So I'm gonna sit on the fence.
I say that's fair. And who knows? Perhaps by the time we actually have to make our final calls, I'll be singing a different tune. I might be on Jason's side by the time we talk about that. And you know what? Jason's saying she is the best. I can't really argue with that. Even when I think she might possibly lose a match, I'm not saying she's not the best. That's fair. As far as Leo Logan here in the chat asking, what does this mean for Scrimshaw next year now that he's 1-5 in the division? I think he's still going to be around because, like I said, he's a solid player. Folks really like him. I don't know if he'll get drafted, though, Because right now, especially knowing that the Star Wars division is like only getting better with continuously more and more strong competitors, but also knowing that the faction system is changing next year and getting slimmed down a little bit, I don't think Scrimshaw is going to get drafted. I think Scrimshaw will more be like one of the guys where it's like, yeah, he's fully playing for himself next year, I think. Like he's just going to be coming in and like, yeah, I'm still having fun. You'll have me as, as long as you want me, I'll be here. I think that'll be kind of his mentality. But yeah, I don't see him getting drafted next year unless there's like 12 factions that each have 5 people. But I don't think that's what's happening. So I think it's probably going to be Scrimshaw all by his lonesome. He'll be a solo like that young man's last name became when he rolled up to customs. What about you, Bugs? Exactly. What do you think?
I mostly agree. However, he's in LA. In terms of live studio matches, he's going to be available as opposed to a lot of Star Wars players who are not. In terms of to do the studio, because obviously Christian wants to do more studio than digital. Yes, his record is, I don't know, the worst in the division. However, like he is like super good. Like, is he in the? If there is 10 factions next year, I can't imagine them being. But if there is 10, is he in the top 10? Maybe. Can he beat a lot of people? Yes. But again, it goes to the same point that I've been making this week and last week. He has to get matched up right. He has to, I'll say the names, whatever. Can he beat Whiteley? Maybe. Can he beat Adam Witt? Can he beat Molly Damon? Maybe. He can maybe get these wins, but he's matched up against Gold Leader, won the tournament. Champ last year, Di Malanta. Like, Alex Damon was his last match before that. So it's always been rough for him. Like, if he matched up against a fellow, like a lower top 10 player, might see a different outcome. Might see his record get even out. So, yeah, it's an interesting point. But will he get drafted? I don't know. It's a bit tough. Maybe.
Yeah, especially considering how many factions right now have multiple Star Wars competitors. Like, I think maybe Finstock Exchange is the only faction that has only one. But let's run down this list real quick, because we do have Corruption, which had Scrimshaw and Sullivan. We had the Dungeon, which I believe had John Hoey and Molly Damon. Quirky Mercs, that's Whiteley and Di Malanta. Finstock Exchange Gold Leader. Usual Suspects, that's Marie Wilson and Nikki Di Malanta. The Den, I know they had Thomas Harper, Lacey Gillerin, and Ross Arsenault, so that's 3. Swag having both Ace Cabrera and Laura Kelly, which, by the way, thinking about those 2 powerhouses being in the same faction and that faction being in the bottom tier, like, that's kind of wild. And then I guess the Stars, they have Zach Burkett. Do they have a second Star Wars competitor?
Alex.
Oh my gosh. Oh
Only
my
gosh. The best ever. Yeah.
Wow. It's
been a long year. It's been a long year, John. Don't blame me.
What a year, huh? I forgot Alex Damon. See, that's why I'm like, I love Joseph Scrimshaw. I hope to see him around next year. I don't think he'll get drafted. If in the faction system, I'm able to forget where Alex Damon is. Well, no. As we begin to transition over into talking about these other 2 matches, our special guest is not able to join us because he's in New York. He's got a hotel room. We're giving him a break. It's okay for him to not be on the show yet. He'll be here. It's very generous that he's spending any of his Saturday morning with us. Let's be clear. We're thankful, all right? We're very grateful.
Absolutely.
Especially when we're talking about somebody that's in like the big old winning faction this year and last year. Adam Collins being kind of the gemstone in a lot of ways when it comes to Corruption, and specifically the singles teams division last year, at least. Obviously, Chance and Mike doing a lot more in teams and inner geekdom, as opposed to this year, where not only is Chance in contention for a belt, but Marisol just won her way well-deservedly to be holding that singles belt currently. But right now, I believe, if, again, my math might be wrong, I'm not a mathematician, but I believe right now Corruption and the Dungeon are tied up with the most faction points. And so right now, obviously, we just came off of a big Corruption week, but Corruption, like we were saying, still has folks in 2 of the different tournaments and 2 different belt holders right now. Whereas the Dungeon, 0 belt holders right now, but they do have 2 people still in the singles tournament. Molly Damon, we'll see if she's able to win over Alex. And then we also do still have Danger Zone. So right now, like, if we're looking at those 2 factions specifically, How do we think they're going to be looking coming out of this this tournament season that we're in right now? Because obviously there's still a few. Who do you think is going to be holding the most belts by the time we get to that spectacular event? It's very easy to say Corruption, but like, do we think that maybe they're going to be taking enough losses that perhaps things might even out a little bit more in the Dungeon's favor?
Yes, just before I answer that, Jason in the comment asking where is Ace? Is he in the tournament? No, unfortunately, he's not. Leo Logan has answered it for you. He got sold out, which is why he's not in the tournament.
Oh.
But anyway, no, I'm just playing. I'm just playing. That's why, that's why Swag is struggling.
You see what happens? Yeah, I was like, you see what happens when Soul's not on the show? Suddenly we're talking about Winston selling people. Right. We sound like the cutscenes at the beginning of the season.
Exactly. No, just playing. But yeah, it is Corruptions to lose. I think it comes down to Mike and Amaru. If Amaru wins that match, I think it opens a few other teams up to win, whether it's the Dungeon, whether it's usual suspects, even Finstock Exchange, a bit of a long shot. But yes, I think it's down to that match because obviously singles ain't going anywhere. It will stay in house for at least a couple of months. So it's down to Amaru. Because if he wins that, he's going to get more, obviously higher points total for being an IG title, and then the next IG title match I think will be Mike against Parker if he wins that. So yeah, it's just a lot of they're keeping all the title points in house, unfortunately, and yeah, it's down to Amaru, I think. So yeah, it's I can't see anyone. It's theirs to lose, and if they don't lose their titles, they're going to win. We're going to win the faction.
I think that's fair. Again. I think that's fair. Yeah. I forgot as well. Again, there's so much happening every single week. We're so blessed when it comes to content. Yeah. Robert Parker of the Dungeon will be representing because Dungeon, they just ran through one tournament, a tournament full of like TKOs, hard competitions all around. They managed to win. Hey, Soul is in the chat. I just noticed that. Hello.
Live from Vegas. How you doing, Soul?
That's right. I hope you're enjoying yourself and you're not spending too much of your vacation watching our
Maybe
show.
Sober this time? Yeah. No?
All right. Hey.
At breakfast time, right? Surely.
Sure. Jason here in the chat asking, Marisol seems to be carrying deception. Am I wrong? # sophomore slump. I would push back on that a little bit. I think it's easy to say that just because obviously Adam Collins went on such a rookie tear last year that he kind of became the protagonist of the Schmoedown for a hot second. But I think what's nice about this year and this season is that we've seen a little bit more, I think, evening out where, like Shannon was just saying in the post game of Collins versus Meyer, they're all still humans. I think what we're seeing right now is just that Marisol is kind of rising to that same level where I think, it's not fair to say Adam Collins is slumped because he's still playing at a great level. Like, I think saying that is wild. But right now we're just seeing Marisol kind of getting her streak right now. She's riding her wave at the moment. I thought so. I have faith in you, Soul. I believe in you.
Thanks for clarifying that, Soul. But yeah, the answer is it doesn't matter. Like, they're both killer players. Like, they're both singles champs within the last kind of 12 months. So who cares if there's an A and a B player there? They're both badass players. And if one takes the initiative over the other, so be it. It's whatever works, as long as you get the win, which they're going to keep doing. And yeah, when they have two, if you had like one, former champion and someone who's like just an IG player, then yeah, like that'd be more of a talking point, but it's not really. Like it doesn't matter. So obviously certain slices someone will take initiative, other may not. So what, they both can handle pressure. They're both big players, so it doesn't matter for me who's an A and a B as long as they win.
Absolutely. Yeah, man, it's a good solid team. It's a good solid faction with already a plethora of belts underneath them. I guess one thing, again, that we're kind of looking at coming out of this tournament is we know already two things to be true about the teams division and two big matches that we're going to have coming up. Right off the bat, we know one of the semifinal matches is going to be Deception of Corruption going up against King Arthur of the Finstock Exchange. That one's going to be insane. That's another one where it's similar to Laura Kelly versus Gold Leader. I can make some early thought predictions, but don't hold me to them. But we also know that before Spectacular, we're going to get a team's title match with Shazam including William the Beast Bibiani and Brendan the Kid Meyer, two folks who are having an incredible season, going up against lightning time of the usual suspects, Ethan Irwin and Liz Shannon Miller, two people that have been having an incredible season. There's a lot of heat still down the line in this team's division. I mean, Boggs, again, kind of talking about, the potential of usual suspects playing spoilers right now, because again, we're talking about a lot of the same factions that are really up there right now when it comes to contention. Suspects is one that's kind of been chipping away at that lead more and more. Less so than I would say like Quirky Mercs, where it's like they just were like, oh, we're at -2. Cool. Here's Demolanta, here's Shazam, and now we've won everything. I feel like Usual Suspects has been more kind of like chiseling their way up to the top. And I feel like that's two very interesting team dynamics to be looking at. Again, early predictions, not going to hold you to them. But when we're looking at all the different teams that are going to be in contention for a spectacular match, who do you think are the teams that we're most likely to see?
You did cut out a little bit there, John. I didn't hear the actual question.
I noticed that. I think I'm on a pretty severe lag, so I'll pose the question and then change my internet, switch it up from the 2G to the 5G or whatever the hell. But yeah, we've got a lot of great teams right now in contention for the belt. Who do you think are the teams we're most likely to see come spectacular?
Oh man, yeah, big. I don't know. Obviously, like you said, King Arthur against Deception, hell of a match. Can't wait to talk about that. And Untouchables, I don't know yet. Obviously, need to see them play. Of course, we know kind of what Danger Zone are bringing. I'm not sure. Obviously, Lightning Time as well. Who's the tournament match? So on the other side of the bracket.
So we do still have Press Room, Mercs, and the Old Guard with the Den. We just don't know who's winning that match yet. So again, it's similar to Danger Zone and Untouchables. Once we get to that semifinals, then we'll be able to really know what's what there.
Right. I don't know. So I wouldn't rule out, the Press Room, because if they click, if Horowitz wins the day and him and Perry click, you don't know. They could be a pretty formidable team. But if I'm going to guess right now, I would say, obviously, I don't know, Lightning Time, Shazam as well. Just off the top of my head, I would say Shazam are going to play Deception. That's who I envision in Spectacular. But obviously, a long way to go. We're still in the first round of that tournament, so we'll see.
Yeah. I see right now Jeff Nicholas in the chat saying Deception and Lightning Time. So at the very least, we got two different opinions right now. It seems like right now, folks are saying Deception's going to be able to have what it takes to win the tournament, but then it's going to be a question of whether this 51-50 spectacular team of Shazam will be able to hold it down against Ethan Irwin, who just had that singles belt for a hot second before it got ripped away by the claws of corruption, and Liz Shannon Miller, who has also been having a great season with, some highs, some lows, but she is another person that, like, when she's dialed in, she is scary. That said, one of the people that did beat her this year is Mark Riley, who is part of that team of the Old Guard alongside Alonzo Duralde, a lovely gentleman who doesn't always get a lot of love, a lot of wins, but he's certainly strong. And then the Press Room, I think probably that's a match that we actually have to give our predictions on later down the line. So I guess I'll save my prediction for how that match is going to go. I will say, Jason Earhart, this is something we agree on. I am real curious about this Untouchables team, because there's some very strong potential there. Paige being one of the folks who, at least in the singles division, is making a strong case for Rookie of the Year. And then Drew McWeeny, where, he was on a team that has been lauded many times as perhaps one of the best all-time teams in Above the Line. And obviously, he's still with Sam Levine this year, even though Sam is now the manager. Drew McWeeny, we've seen get some impressive wins, like his win over the Barbarian. But we've also seen him take some tough losses, like to Ty Lieberman. I think it's going to be one of those day of wheel category type things. You know what I mean? Where it's all going to depend on how luck goes for the Untouchables and how luck goes for Danger Zone. Because obviously Ben Bateman, somebody who took a loss to Paige for Betty not too long ago. Dan Murrell lost the singles belt unfortunately. So like there's a lot of wiggle room. There's a lot of wiggle room on that side of the bracket. It's going to be interesting to see.
For sure.
That said, I think even though Adam is not joining us quite yet, he'll be here very soon. Don't you worry. I think it's about time we start talking about his two great matches because he had two great ones. And since he's not here, let's perhaps start off the conversation with the one that unfortunately he lost, and that would be this singles match that we are talking about. His rematch, in fact, with Brendan the Kid Meyer, again, part of that spectacular Shazam team, as I already said. Verbatim, in fact. I used spectacular twice as an adjective. I guess I don't know if he would prefer that to being described as Peaky Blinders, but who knows? I saw obviously the like blonde highlights, I think is what I don't know if it counts as highlights because it seemed like the hair on top was brown and like the hair beneath was blonde. So I guess it's like reverse highlights. Would we call that low lights?
I don't know. I didn't even notice they were blonde there. I just thought they were just really short. Like you just got like a grade 0 or something. But...
I mean, this is what happens when you don't have hair for 4 years. You just forget how it works. I just don't remember anymore how it goes. But yeah, this was obviously a very interesting rematch. Adam Collins, as part of his big wave last year, managed to beat Brendan Meyer in the singles tournament. But this year, Brendan Meyer has just been looking scarier and scarier. And I hate to say it, Bob, because you and I were the two people of this 5-person production that had Adam Collins winning this, and we were proven wrong this time around because Brendan got the win.
Yeah. It was a tough pick. I was not confident, like 100% confident in saying Collins to win, but it seems like Brendan's really coming to his own as a singles player now. Like he's going for some revenge in terms of this match and potentially the next match, the winner of that. So yeah, he just looks like he's really kind of matching Bibbs now, as opposed to like the A and the B thing. Like he's like, oh, okay, we're both super strong now. So yeah, it was super impressive. The variety of stuff that he knows, and yeah, he's done really well. And Collins obviously been a bit up and down singles this year, but he's kind of proved his worth already. So yeah, I was backing him. I thought he'd go on a little run, but wasn't to be. But good match overall.
Yeah, I mean, and the point that you brought up about Brendan Meyer really seeming like he's matching Bibiani, that's something that's been a conversation piece in the Schmoedown world for quite some time. I feel like ever since Shazam started as a team, that's kind of been the discussion of whether there is that clear A player, B player differentiation. And it's something that we even heard Brendan himself mention, that he said that like, yeah, I know that's something that people talk about all the time. I know that's something that's kind of constantly looming over me. But again, like kind of looking at, is this the Schmoedown? Oh, of course. Look at us. Are you kidding me? What could be more fashionable than a bald dude in an anime jacket and a superhero cartoon t-shirt? That's peak fashion.
Yeah. Sure.
There you go. And the classic stripes. There you go.
I sleep in these, actually.
There's nothing better. Oh, goodness. Yeah. And yeah, it's also worth noting that, while it was a loss for Adam Collins, this was not a kind of like wipe out wash sort of match. This was really down to the wire all the way through. Starting with round one, the fact that both of them got a perfect round going 8 for 8, but it just so happened that bonus question Adam was not able to pull, whereas Brendan Meyer, it seemed like didn't know that he had it at first. But that the Rock Fast and Furious bonus question of just how many he was in, that wound up being kind of like the first blood kind of moment where Meyer was able to get that 1 point edge over him going into round two, where both again went perfect, but unfortunately Collins was just 1 point behind, having to check down a multiple choice once, whereas Brendan did not need to check down for the David Lynch questions. And then round three, it was going back and forth until unfortunately a really tough 5-pointer. I forget why, but like I had just looked up Sleeping with the Enemy like a couple days ago, and I remember seeing the poster, and I was just like, I'm not having just thought about this movie. I was not able to pull that 5-point question. So again, like no criticisms against Adam Collins for not being able to pull that, because that's a tough friggin' question. What were your thoughts on this match overall, Boggs?
Overall, yeah, like the guy played perfect. As kind of Jeff in the chat says, the kid shows up against champions. you're damn right. And yeah, he played fantastic, and Collins obviously kind of doing nothing wrong really, like not getting your bonus and going multiple choice once. That is just that just shows that you're human. As you were saying, he's mortal, but when you're playing against someone who's plays perfect, it's you're playing catch up. And yeah, obviously did have that hard 5. Brendan didn't have to hit his, but yeah, I was super impressed with Brennan and the variety, and he's got like a real calmness now. I feel like last year, even the digital matches last year, I think he had to get muted a few times because he's just so all over the place. And obviously it is pre-recorded, so maybe he did have to get muted. I don't know. But it seems like he's past that stage now. Like he's more comfortable in himself as like I wouldn't say a veteran, but like an experienced player where he's confident, even in if he lands a weakness. See, when he said that there's 4 of the slices that he wouldn't want to get, I kind of don't believe him. I think he'd be comfortable in pretty much anything. I think that's just the kind of mind games that he plays because, obviously he would go multiple choice. He may miss some. I don't think I've seen him have a bad round 2 ever. So, yeah, I think it's all just a bit of a, you fall for his maybe niceness, but really he's a killer and he knows his stuff. So, yeah, he played excellent and showed a lot of kind of good attributes this match. And I think it's probably obviously it is his best singles win and his best singles performance as well. So ticked a lot of boxes this match. And, if Oyama wins, obviously the next match, which will be Oyama against Barbarian, he's looking for another revenge match. And, it's hard to pick against him. Over 3 rounds, like he's just super, super good. But on the other side for Collins, I will say a bit gutted. I thought he would have a bit of a run here. He's lost a couple in a row now, singles matches. So it's kind of onto the teams. But, he did play really good himself. It is just against someone perfect. He's done it enough times to other people where he's gone perfect and they've only kind of missed 1 or 2. So, yeah, it's just how the game goes, unfortunately. But, yeah, he's got nothing to worry about in terms of, his legacy or anything like that because, what he's kind of done last year and kind of carried it forward this year. Yeah, he just come up against someone perfect, basically, was the moral of the story.
Absolutely. I mean, it just kind of goes to show that, honestly, especially us two, having been surprised by Brendan's win in this one, now I'm kind of starting to think, is this maybe Brendan Meyer's tournament? Is this maybe the year where Brendan goes all the way to the finals and clinches it? Because he got, I think it was 2019 where he got all the way to the finals, but ultimately lost to Ben Bateman. And then that was the year that like Ben Bateman won his singles belt. So like maybe we're starting to see the beginning of Brendan Meyer's complete takeover, getting the singles and teams belts. That would be pretty insane. Certainly Collins' win puts a little bit more pressure on James White and Mike Kalinowski being the 2 players left in the singles tournament for Corruption. But again, we're talking about a faction that has 2 different people playing for the singles belt tonight in a scant few hours. So it's hard to say really how much pressure there is necessarily. Especially, Adam Collins, you can't say too much bad about him because in the same week that he took a loss, he also got a W alongside his partner Marisol McKee in this Deception versus Chaos Theory match. Again, when I talk about faction momentum, we got to look at a faction like the Stars, where they have just taken a heavy amount of hard-fought losses. Like, it's tough because certainly there are some good players in that faction. How much at this point do we attribute luck to the equation, I guess, when it comes to looking at this faction? Because, like, obviously a big part of, or there are 2 big things that really resulted, I think, in the Stars kind of taken some hard losses and being all the way down at the bottom this year. It's the fact that Alex finally got beaten by Demolanta twice. So that's a huge one. But then also, obviously, the less controllable element of having to lose both Mark Andreyko and Jeff Snyder, who really were like in the same way that Shazam and Demolanta are kind of the crown jewels of the Quirky Mercs this year, not having the odd couple for either your singles or teams divisions. Like, that's a huge just slice to potential points.
Yeah, so it is an interesting topic. Okay, so for the rock stars, if I can just quickly break them down. So,
or the Stars, rather. The Stars. We have to.
I've done that so many times this year. The Stars, I would have a little bit of leniency for because losing arguably, you know, two of the best players in the game with Schneider and Draco, 3-time champion Schneider, so 2-time champion on Draco. So yeah, that is rough. You would expect them to have picked up points in both divisions, singles and teams, because they had to relinquish as champions as well. So I do have a bit of leniency towards them. Yeah, they've got some other players that haven't picked up enough points as much as you would think, but a lot of them have had good performances in losses. You know, whether it's Alex, Janine, Jacoby, Nick Harley, obviously we'll talk about that now. But yeah, so they have been quite unlucky. If they just had two kind of A players doing their thing, then yeah, it would be understandable. But I don't think they had the worst draft. I think who had the worst draft is Swag, in my opinion. Yeah, so I think slightly off topic, but yeah, I think I mentioned it when Chandru was here at one point. I think they're very top heavy. So like they've got a lot of killers, whether it's, you know, Ayama, Chandru, Laura, and then obviously you've got like Lon, Ace, and Jen. I count her in that as well. And then just the rest of just not picking up points, as opposed to like the Finstock Exchange or Usual Suspects or, you know, Corruption. Like the whole team is getting points pretty much. So yeah, I don't think they had the best shot. I'm picking Zipper first round draft. I was like, damn. Obviously 100% is a good player, but as a first round draft, no, sorry. It's I think they had the worst draft. But like I said, the Rockstars obviously didn't have a great one, but to be fair, they've had a couple of like injured players, basically. But yeah, that's why my overall summary of the Stars. I nearly said Rockstars again.
Yeah. And hey, listen, you self-corrected. I'm very proud of you as your father. But yeah, looking at this Deception Chaos Theory match, certainly it's hard to argue that Stars had a bad draft when you look at not only how well Jacoby Bancroft has been like pretty consistent all the way throughout, but also looking at Nick Harley, a late in the season acquisition over from the FCL. I feel like he was kind of the standout player to me in a lot of ways for this match, because this was one where I feel like we really got to see him shine against some of the like Schmoedown proper greats. And I thought he really held his own very well. And it's hard to argue that, considering that we were tied up at the end of all 3 rounds of this match. When you're going up against like the former and the current like singles belt holders, like I think Roxy was right on the money where she was like, these two are wild. And I think it is kind of a shame, I think, that Roxy did kind of wind up having to put so much stock in her new talent, because there is this kind of element of like, yeah, we're watching them hold their own right now. They're going to be monstrous next year. I can almost guarantee it. But the fact that right now it's just like they're stuck at this level of like, yeah, we're really good rookies. And so like they're good at holding their own against like best of the best, which again, I think Jacoby, like, wasn't he up during one of the rounds against Brendan Meyer? Like,
yeah, he was winning at one point.
Yeah. So like, oof. Boy, oh boy, it's tough. But yeah, that's what we kind of look at when we look at this Deception Chaos Theory match, where it's just like tied up round 1, tied up round 2, tied up round 3. Boggs, like, what are your overall thoughts about this here match?
Yeah, just quick, so a couple of comments in the chat there. Drunken Prayer saying hair is overrated. That's a lie. I can see Skateweather's Jeff is asking, y'all got Lady Justice or Cobra? So we do that at the end of the show. You know, our producers come on, we do our predictions then, so just hold on for that. Skateweather asking, he got a little lucky against Jacoby in round 1. He's another dominant performer. Yeah, that's possibly, but he's on the way now, obviously, because, you know, of this big win that he's had. But yeah, going back to this match, I thought they played pretty excellent. You know, Chaos Theory, you know, with 2 rookies, you know, someone who was in the FCL earlier. So yeah, I didn't know how good Nick was. I just thought, yeah, he kind of sounds good. Talks good game. He played okay in the first teams match. You know, they got the win. But this was like, no, you're against killers. You know, you can't hang. It's going to be all on Jacoby. It was kind of the other way around. And like, you know, stuff that he did know, you know, had an excellent round 1 in that sudden death last pull. I was super impressed with the kind of variety of stuff that he knew and how well he played against these 2 champs who you know, they kept up with him. They don't know they could, you know, against 2, you know, current and former singles champ. Like you have to match them, right? And that's exactly what they done. They both played fantastic. But it was also kind of nice to see Roxy as well. Like we've not seen it. I feel like I don't remember the last time that she was on a match, or the last few months even. So I know she obviously must be busy, whatever, but that kind of contributes to maybe where they are in the faction stand. She's not been there. I know they kind of said how dedicated she was as a manager, but on a kind of match day, we haven't seen her there. There's been other people covering, but it's nice because she showed a bit of passion there and a bit of fight, which we've not kind of seen from the stars. And then her players kind of reflected her persona. I was like, oh, okay, like we've missed this the last few months. So that was kind of nice to see. But yeah, I mean, they play pretty it's pretty surprising how good they played. And but they didn't slip up. Obviously didn't have a fantastic round one by their extremely high standards, but for the rest, it brought them through. But they made an interesting point afterwards. They can't have this kind of round against kind of round one against King Arthur. I kind of agree. So but obviously they are way more experienced than King Arthur. We saw their communication wasn't outstanding in their match. So I'm expecting Deception to be a lot more kind of structured and more organized than King Arthur in terms of like communication, round two, things like that. But it's going to be super interesting, and because if you're playing against 4 top players, and we'll see what they got moving into that next round.
Yeah, absolutely, man. First of all, thank you all so much, everybody who's commenting along in the chat. We really appreciate y'all. Don't forget, if you're able to, any Streamlabs or Super Chats are always appreciated. But also, like Ambling Soul was saying, just smash that like button. Just keep on talking. We're always happy to have you. Any little bit of support helps, no matter what you're able to contribute to us and this show. Looking at some of the comments here in the chat, Jeff Nicholas, Chaos Theory is scary. No doubts, absolutely. Leo Logan bringing up the Stars now have Alex and Janine left to play for the rest of the season. That is tough because Alex definitely has what it takes to win that Star Wars tournament. Janine, I think she does have what it takes to be able to win that singles tournament, but boy, howdy, does she have some tough contenders, considering that right now, like we were saying, like 3 of the best rookies this year are all on one side of the bracket. We also have both Brendan Meyer and William Bibiani, who have been having like damn near perfect games. There's a lot of scary stuff that Janine is facing, whereas Alex, he's still kind of like the quintessential scary Star Wars player, being the 2 to 3 years long belt holder. So we could see something of a comeback for the Stars, whether or not I don't think they can get to number 1. It's sort of like me trying to get to number 1 in our match prediction standings.
Sure,
it's just not going to happen.
It'll never happen.
She could, the Stars right now, they
can get points though, right?
Yeah. Oh,
it's like one thing at a time, right? She can get points. Alex can, can he win the tournament and win the belt back? Sure. But can he get points? Can he, get some kind of redemption back for that faction? Yes, definitely. How many? Not sure, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we never know until it's day of, I guess. And then, looking at what's left in the tournaments, obviously we've talked a little bit already about both the Star Wars and the teams tournament. Looking at what's going on in the singles tournament, right now there's only one faction with 3 confirmed players still in it, that being the Quirky Mercs. That'll obviously change depending on what happens tonight, because they are going up against the Finstock Exchange, who currently has 2 players, and with Barbarian and Griffey Arthur Nooms. Corruption, the Dungeon, and Swag all also have 2 players still in it. Merle and Harris are going to be going up against each other this coming week, so that's certainly going to set the tone as well. And then meanwhile, the Suspects and the Stars each only have 1 player left. Obviously, that 1 player for the Usual Suspects is somebody who is already guaranteed going through round 2, having gotten that great win against Ben Bateman. Will it be enough for them to gain traction in this tournament specifically? It's hard to say. But I think one thing that could be a huge factor in Paige's momentum is the fact that with both the singles and the teams tournament going on right now, she's going to be getting a lot of matches in quick succession, which could be a very easy way to build momentum. Something that I think, and we'll ask him about this later, but something that really aided Adam Collins in his rookie debut season is that when he got drafted, he was basically immediately put into 2 different tournaments, and that's a big part of how he made his name. So, it's tough, man. I mean, looking at the singles tournament, again, we just keep talking about it, but there's so many heavy hitters, and I feel like while it's specifically a tough one for the Stars and Janine not being able to get that momentum, while Swag has hit some tough points. Dan Murrell, this has been one of his most human seasons, I would say, this year. The poor guy, he's often lauded as the GOAT, and having that kind of pressure put on him, I think this is the season where we're seeing some ebbs and flows. Yeah, man, what are your thoughts on this singles tournament as a whole? Because we've been talking about specific players, basically, for this episode. So what do you think about it as a whole, big picture?
Yeah, it's a big tournament, so still a while away for kind of any potential winner. But yeah, I just think that, righting your wrongs, I guess, for kind of some of maybe the more experienced players like Brennan or like Oyama maybe. Obviously we saw fantastic tournament last year. Is this kind of the same level as last year? I'm not 100% sure yet, but it started off well, and I'm looking for maybe I'd like to see someone unexpected win, because like last year, like we had that fantastic run from Collins last year, but I'd like to see someone different, and kind of help. In doing so, they will get more points and then push. I was going to say deception, but push corruption for that title, because they seem to be potentially, on paper as it is right now, they could be potentially running away with it. So with their kind of scheduled matches coming up, so I want people to to push them, and I need kind of the top kind of 3 or 4 teams to have their players go through this tournament. So yeah.
I mean, listen, you talk about pushing corruption. In order to do that, folks have got to push one of the best players to be currently doing it right now. Folks, we are very blessed to have joining us the former singles champion of the Movie Trivia Schmoedown, a fantastic singles and teams competitor, and a member of the well-deservedly respected Corruption faction, the faction winners last year, and on the road to potentially do it again for a second time out. Also somebody who hosts a lovely show called Why Are We Like This on the Video Drew podcast network, which I believe airs every other Saturday. Everyone, please give it up for our wonderful guest, Mr. Adam Collins.
Hey, I made it. Can you hear me?
You look great, sound great, sir.
Okay, awesome. I even hooked up to my hotspot, so I'm not messing with hotel internet. I wanted this to go smoothly now that I'm finally here.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
After you, sir. After you.
Well, mostly I'm just here to say thank you, and you're great. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, thank you for joining us from your hotel. Obviously, we've seen quite a bit of hotel action, I guess, with the King Arthur match, and now you joining us here on this show. Gosh dang hotels. I don't know what's going on with them and their lobbies and their problems, but how are you doing today? Was your flight into New York all right?
Didn't have to fly since I'm East Coast. I drove.
Right.
But yeah, it was just a slight miscommunication about early check-in, but then they got it sorted out and got me checked in. So no complaints now. But I've actually been here since yesterday. I was at a different hotel last night, and then long story, but I had to be in. I had already booked the previous hotel, and then I have this hotel, so just had to move today. So it was just kind of a shuffle around Brooklyn. It was a little silly.
I remember having to shuffle around Brooklyn back when I lived there for a year, and I can definitely confirm that can be a bit of an issue, especially because, like, is the L train still down over there? I remember, I think it went down right as I left.
All I know is I took the D train last night from Brooklyn to Manhattan for Ellis's show. That was the extent of my train experience here. I've been here. I've taken the train once, I've Ubered once, and I've driven my own car. And that's all in one day.
My good, that's the trifecta right there.
Welcome to New York.
Check out all the streets. Boggs, over to you. Do you have any initial questions for Adam before we start digging into these matches?
For sure. Absolutely pleasure to see you again, sir. And thanks so much for coming on whilst you're obviously in that wonderful city for this event tonight. First of all, how is it being in New York? Obviously, with meeting a lot of the kind of Schmoedown community, the players who you've never met before, and going to your first live event as a former champ, as a player. How's that kind of overall experience? Because I don't know if you went to the
matches.
Yeah, but I'm talking about live. Live.
This is no, it's exciting because I've been to every single New York live event thus far as a fan. So I went to all 3, and so it's familiar territory. But being on the other side of it's obviously quite exciting. Having gone out to LA for Marisol's match, And then what ended up being a match for me, which was not on the schedule. I literally found out 20 minutes before that Patreon match. They said there's a because Lon was really sick and he wanted to be safe, which was we all, very considerate. And but Dan was all the way out there. I was like, well, Dan should play a match, right? But we didn't want to risk our spots in the tournament and rearrange the brackets. So we agreed to an exhibition. And obviously things didn't well, go watch the match on Patreon. What am I saying? Go watch it. I'm not going to spoil it. But anyway, that was like my first exposure to even a smaller Schmoedown crowd and being around people. But even last night going to Ellis's show, just meeting people was a lot of fun. And it's going to be even crazier tonight, I imagine. But yeah, I'm familiar with the city. I love coming to New York. And, this is really the East Coast home of the Schmoedown, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I think hey, listen, with live events being what they are next year and the belt being held at the moment by Philadelphia, and hopefully maybe we can switch around the East Coast home next year. I don't know. I don't have a bias or anything. Not that I'm biased.
Yeah, no, I get it. I actually, I saw you throw in some support after she won with, I think it was an Eagles jersey or a shirt or something.
Yeah, it was a Philadelphia crop top from a Philadelphia-centric clothing brand. There's a brand called Affiliated, but it's spelled PHIL.
Yeah.
I have multiple clothing items from them, so I was like, it was more a question of which one do I wear.
Well, you always look good in Philly gear. I'm not a card-carrying Philadelphian myself, but I like the city quite a bit. So I have no issue with it being where the belt currently resides, especially given whose hands it's in.
Yeah. Hey, if we don't get the Eagles winning this year, it's good to have at least the Schmoedown wins in our corner.
It counts. It counts.
It really does. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to talk to you a little bit because obviously you had 2 different matches this week, both against some high caliber opponents. The first of which that we're going to be talking about is your singles match, which was ultimately, unfortunately, a loss. Your second time going around with Brendan Meyer.
Yeah.
One of the things that we talked about a little bit is obviously last year when you kind of got drafted, you got drafted right at the start of both the singles and the teams tournament. Mm-hmm. So obviously that's a very different match, like kind of going in as an unknown with a lot of momentum. Whereas this time around, I feel like there's a lot of pressure on you, a lot of folks that are kind of counting you out in a very different way, having taken losses to, unfortunately, Dan Merle and JTE a little bit earlier on in the year. It's that weird thing of like now the expectations are there as a way to like discount you. How did you feel about it kind of like going into this match?
I mean, I'd be lying if I said, it's not a factor. You do your best to compartmentalize and keep that stuff out of your head when you're playing. But the season speaks for itself. I think I've brought high levels of play in all my matches. I'm mostly self-critical of the JT match because that's one where I missed questions I wouldn't have missed on a different day. Every other match where I've lost, the questions I missed clean. They weren't like Born Legacy, we were on the cusp, but like most of the things I've missed have been just flat out not going to happen today. And that's the way it is. But there's been pressure because last year, it was, I took it one match at a time and it was just so unexpected. And I couldn't have been happier with the way things turned out. But coming back this year, the visibility is just so much higher. People didn't really know who I was, obviously, last year. And it's not that I thought I was going to come in and steamroll everybody. I just wanted to come in and show that I could hang. And now that I'm here, frankly, when you look at a lot of people's Schmoedown careers, you can see the ebbs and flows. Dan Merle, Bibiani, Clark Wolf's countless players. Go through these peaks and valleys, and you want to be a powerhouse. You want to be you want to win as many matches as possible. But given the way the Schmoedown is now, it's so hard to go on a singles run. So I realized after it was over how unique last year was. It was kind of a blur by the time I got to the end of it. But the idea of having to repeat it this year, I was trying not to put that pressure on myself. I wanted to get as far as I could. But as soon as I saw that quadrant, I was like, well, whoever gets out of this quadrant has a good chance of winning the whole thing. And we still got skin in the game. I have faith in Mike and James for sure. But I just think Brendan, Oyama, Barbarian, whoever comes out of that mix is going to be hard to stop. So I'm excited as a spectator to see where this goes. But yeah, this match with Brendan, I didn't leave anything on the table. That 5-pointer was never going to happen. And most people I've talked to did not know the answer to that either. So I can live with it. It's disappointing, but I can live with it.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, you're right. Like looking at these tournaments year by year, it's very rare, I think, if it's ever happened that the same person has like won the same tournament the next year after having won it previously. I mean, obviously this year, just looking at the Inner Geekdom tournament alone, Robert Parker is somebody that got taken out round 2 by your faction mate, Chance Ellison. Whereas this year he managed to get like all the way to the finals and win it. And then like also with Ace last year having gone on his incredible Star Wars run and unfortunately getting taken out by the then now champion Thomas Harper. And looking at your match like this, I mean, Brendan himself said it, like this is the first time in a minute that he went like as perfect as he's been.
It was his first 100% PPE in teams. It was his first. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, so like I think, especially since both me and Boggs had you winning this match, like this is now we've been kind of talking. Of course. Listen, how could we not? I mean, now we know, but it was close. Like you were, again, obviously that 5-pointer wasn't going to happen, but like you went perfect in round 1. It was just the bonus. You went.
You know what kills me? I could have named the director of that film, which I think isn't equally Joseph Rubin. I think that's a fair, challenging question. But the thing is, Patrick Bergen is the enemy and Sleeping with the Enemy. They kind of got me there. I can't really, like Julia's a Slice. Like that's something you either know for some unknown reason anecdotally that you can't explain, or you've studied it and it's just not something I picked up on in the sessions.
Yeah, I think that's more than fair, man. I mean, I don't know anything, so that's always my point of reference. I would ask, like, do you think there would be any form of like weird validation if Brendan wound up being the winner of this tournament, where you're like, well, yeah, I lost to the friggin' winner. How can I be mad about that?
I mean, I already feel I'm already at peace with losing to someone of Brendan's caliber. I mean, he's a current belt holder, who's defended. He hasn't been able to go on that big run in singles before. And I think he's as primed as ever to do it. Whoever comes out of Oyama Barbarian, it's going to be tough because I feel like the Jacoby match woke Brendan way up. Not that he played bad. He played great. But he missed a couple things I think he feels like he shouldn't have missed. And this match, he just came so determined, so focused, and I respect him keeping Lynch. I told him I would have done the same thing with Paul Thomas Anderson, which I don't. Disclaimer: I don't know for a fact that he chose that, but like it was an educated hunch that maybe because it was a director slice. So like we're not afraid of each other's strengths. It's just a raw trivia battle.
Absolutely, it's the stuff that we most love to see. And we'll be talking a little bit more about Jacoby Bancroft, who you just mentioned, in a hot second. But first, I wanted to ask you, Boggs, do you have any questions for Adam regarding this singles match specifically?
Well, I do have another question. So you mentioned your tournament run last year and, it being unexpected and everything. And I want to know what's your kind of biggest highlight that you've had so far? Or biggest, obviously it's easy to say winning the title, but is there anything like personally that you felt that was even more of a surprise, or you got more of a high from, or just any kind of random thing, even potentially that you've maybe we don't know of that you consider to be a highlight? Because you've gave us a lot of highlights, so I just want to know where you kind of have enjoyed the kind of highs the most.
Well, last year obviously was I liked last year a lot. It was great. I mean, last year though, aside from winning the match against Dan. That horror free for all was just the time of my life. I feel like that was hopefully someday we get something like it again, but I feel like that was a very special one-time thing that people got really into. And it was just this really organic reaction. People really loved watching it and passing the match around and telling people to watch it. And it got horror fans engaged with the Schmoedown in a way I hadn't seen before. And it pigeonholed me as a horror guy, which I'm fine with. Put a target on my back with Bibbs, which was fun, with him calling me out last year. So that was a big highlight. This year, I'm proud of again, I'm hard on myself about JTE because of specific reasons, but I don't think I left anything behind in my other matches. I feel like they've been all high level of play. But if I'm being completely honest, being there for Marisol's victory was one of the best experiences I've had all season. Getting the match with Dan was a special treat. It was nice to make like my live debut in a little exhibition match and have it against the best to ever play, and feeding off the crowd. One thing I'll spoil for people who haven't seen the Patreon match is they started David Lynch chant, which I could get really into. It was like in the vein of Meryl Streep, but David Lynch. And then the best part is when you watch Bibiani Lieberman, which was recorded the same day. I don't think David Lynch is on that wheel, but they're chanting David Lynch. I'm like, okay. So that was funny. But honestly, Marisol's victory was probably the highlight of the season because we all have just believed in her so much, and we really are a team. And I think tonight is poised to, really take over as the big one, because we got two of our stars playing for the belt. It already feels like the biggest victory. It's guaranteed points, which is great. And either Chance makes history by winning the belt, or Marisol makes more history by defending it. And they're two of the best to ever play. So I just can't wait to watch.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so tough to think about, because right now I would say probably my pick for match of the year is Marisol's title match. And it was so lovely at the end of that match to see all of Corruption there, kind of like supporting her with you, Shannon, Mike, Sean there as well. It was great. Obviously, this match is going to be a teensy bit different, if only for the fact that it's two different Corruption people going up against each other. I'm assuming it's probably not all-out civil war with folks taking sides, but have you all worked out, all right, who's going to stand in whose corner?
Well, at the same time, while it's guaranteed points and there's a lot of silver linings here, neither of them is taking it easy on the other. If you've paid attention to Twitter, it speaks for itself. Go check that out. It's pretty fascinating stuff, the two of them and Shannon. But honestly, I think tonight, Shannon's going to be a pro. She's going to handle both sides. I'm going to come out there with my crew probably, but I'm a spectator now. I'm there to be supportive of my entire faction and to be there for whatever happens in the aftermath. So it's not going to be like when Mike and Chance did the IG finals. I'll tell you that. This is there's fire in their bellies for sure.
Absolutely. And I think as fun as it was to kind of see the two of them kind of relaxed in their Hawaiian shirts, that's something that more suited being digital and at home, where it's if you're performing for a crowd, you got to make it hype. You got to make it intense. That's more than fair.
Plus, with the arrival of Jacoby Bancroft, he's kind of cornered the market on Hawaiian shirts. I knew that when he got drafted because I played with him in the other leagues. I was like, and none of us can wear Hawaiian shirts now because that's definitely his thing. Although in his mind, he'd be like, everyone should.
Yeah, right?
That'd be a happy, beautiful world.
Schmoedown fans need to co-opt Hawaiian shirts back from the Proud Boys or whichever dumb loser faction out there in the world is using them right now. But enough about that negativity. Let's talk about some real positivity, which was you and Marisol McKee and Jacoby Bancroft and newcomer and real star right off the bat, Nick Harley, in this incredible teams match that you had as well, which happened to go a little bit more your way.
Yeah, I mean, I was thrilled with that outcome. That match ended up being something that all four of us were really, really proud of. But they were pesky as hell, those two. God, they just wouldn't stop. We were like, when we came back after round two, we were so hopeful for some steals. And we were like, so, they've really found their chemistry, their flow. They're a top tier team. And the thing that's funny is, I mean, Marisol and I have both gone 9 out of 9, both in singles and as a team. They went 9 out of 9 in their debut. And then round one knocked us, all four of us, on our asses. And that's why it was such an interesting opening, because everyone's missing different stuff. I can admit freely that the only reason I missed Ace Ventura is because I misheard the category and I thought it was family films. And I was thinking of a different train of thought. And that's because I was distracted by missing a previous question. You can't always anticipate how you're going to react in the moment. So it was to recover from that, for both teams to recover and play literally perfect until the end, I think makes it a very unique match, and I was glad to see the response to it.
Absolutely. Boggs, let's hear your thoughts on this team's match as well, dude.
Yeah, it's a little bit mirrored to the blackjack match, where obviously you guys did have Deception did have quite a big lead at one point in the match, but they just went perfect throughout their kind of the rest of the match, and then kind of they avoided the KO or TK if I remember correctly. So yeah, how does it feel like that? You know, teams have to play, or teams are stepping up against you guys. You know, being a kind of current champ and a former singles champ as well, they're playing absolutely stellar against you. So yeah, it's like, there's no kind of TKOs on the table. You have to kind of it's like a drag out match every time. Does it get a bit exhausting like that? Like there's no kind of easy win, or nothing for you have to kind of leave it all on the table because it's such a tough match every time you go in.
It feels that way for sure, because the only easy victory we had was our debut, which the stars aligned for that. It was a perfect storm. We caught Ethan and Andrew off guard in a very unique way by giving them Hitchcock that I don't think we'll ever catch Ethan off guard again. But it was just that match played out that way because, I mean, Ethan and Andrew had never played together before, and Marisol and I were making our debut, and we did not expect that to be a KO. I don't think that would be a KO. I think that was a once in a one-time deal. I don't think that would have been a KO on a different day, because of those. I think Guy is an underrated old guard player with sneaky knowledge, and obviously Ethan's Ethan. So I think the two of them together could have done a lot. But every match other than that, though, has been tooth and nail, whether we win or lose. And we're back to 500, which is great. But we've had to enter the teams division just immediately going into high level play, and this is our third tournament, and we haven't gotten past round 2 yet, so we realize we have a lot yet we want to accomplish as a team. But it does seem that every time people play us, whether it's in singles or teams, people really come to play. And with Deception, we haven't scored less than 30 points as a team in any match, which I think is a good statistic to demonstrate, we're always going to bring it. You have to score at least more than 30 points to beat us. And I think minimum these days, all teams have to deliver that to be competitive.
Yeah, it's crazy, really. Like, it is like, I think someone in the chat's comment there. It's like the respect level that someone's, they're clearly there or studying so much to kind of just even match you guys. Even, some teams might even think going in that we're going to lose, but let's give a good account of ourselves, which I thought, is a bit of a crazy thing to match. Like, for example, Nick Harley, like he played stellar, I thought, this match, and him, also getting that sudden death one. He's a new player as well. It really caught me off guard. And I thought, like, this keeps happening to Deception, so I just find it's an interesting dynamic against you guys. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're very fortunate in the sense that we don't get any easy victories. Nick was really impressive in this match. We were not sleeping on Nick. Nick zipped through the FCL, got to the big show really fast for good reason, because he's very knowledgeable. And had the pleasure of meeting him in person last night. Wish I had more negative things to say since I'm on Corruption, but a pretty charming fellow. So really impressed with him. I think he's got a huge future in the Schmoedown. And Jacoby, I have so much empathy for him, given our similar backgrounds and also the strength of our schedules. I would consider, like, me and Jacoby are like, and Marisol too, obviously she's the champ, but like immediately like in the SEC level of the Schmoedown, like we're dealing with the schedule. We're not playing some, glorified Division III school, like it's just constant fights. And Jacoby has really had to go through it this season, but even with losses, I think he's shown how incredibly formidable he is.
Yeah, for sure, as his first season. Also, random question: how tall are you?
I'm 5'11".
Yeah,
and he's like 6'50" or something. He's a tall fellow. He's a tall gentleman. Yeah, he's very, very tall. He's got at least a few inches on me. We haven't met in person, me and Jacoby, but he's tall.
Okay. Yeah, I found it surprising in the I think in the cantina. I just didn't expect you to be that tall for some reason. I just don't know why. No idea. I think that was a lot of the comments as well. Like, oh my god, look how tall Collins is. So yeah, for some reason I always imagined you just to be like 5'4".
Well, and Marisol was getting that too because she's really tall. And Video Drew tweeted some hilarious pictures of the three of us. And because she looks like a happy little kid between us, I said while the pictures were being taken, I'm like, we're gonna adopt you. And then she tweeted about it. But yeah, I mean, I never felt like I was exceptionally tall, but there are some petite people in the Schmoedown. I met Paige Fabretti, who is like just so compact and delightful. So I'm definitely taller than her. But yeah, like being able to like stand eye to eye with Dan, he's a little taller than me, but like he's really, he's a big guy too. So it was cool to like watch it played back, the Patreon match, just to see what it looks like in that environment. And I can't wait to do. I should be doing only studio matches next year, from what I understand. So I'm excited about that.
There you go. Yeah, I think the big reason we're so curious about the height thing is because all four of us hosts were all the same exact height. So we're all just like, all right, now we have the good basis of understanding.
What may I ask what that height is?
Absolutely, yes, it is 5'9".
Okay, you're all 5'9". Okay.
That's right. It's a weird happenstance, but it just shows how much Roka knows when it comes to casting.
Yep. He likes to keep things consistent.
Exactly. One of the things that we're going to have to be looking down the pipeline of, like you were saying, no easy matches for Deception. You are going to be having to face King Arthur as your round 2 match, which is, again, 2 crazy good rookies that have come out this year, including friend of the show, King Khan, and, of course, Griffey Arthur Nooms, who's playing tonight. So I was kind of curious, A, how much of you're going to have to spend this, live event tonight just like furiously taking notes on what you see, but also how much having to think about that as kind of the next thing down the line as I read our private chat and see that our producer, Mike, is just roasting me to absolute hell. Fair enough, Mike. Fair enough.
He's got a couple inches.
Yeah, that's fair.
Wants to keep it accurate. I got you. Yeah, it's I'm excited to meet Griffin. As expected, the teams match, they're at least letting Marisol and Griffin get through this weekend before having to deal with that. I'm not exactly sure when we're going to record it, but I know it premieres before the end of the month. Very, very excited about this match. Ever since Griffin debuted, I wanted to tangle with him in some capacity. He's just got that. He's got that quality that everyone's been talking about. Horowitz has it too. They have inherent, reliable, well-rounded knowledge, which makes them statistically at a certain level of winning in every single match they play. So watching them play each other tonight, I'm obviously the most excited for Marisol and Chance, but I gotta say, as a fan of the game, this is one of the most exciting rookie matches. Seeing Horowitz and Newman play each other, they've earned their reputation so far, so I'm really excited to see that. With King Arthur, obviously Jeffrey Kahn is very good too. I've been interested in mixing it up with him since I've seen what he can do. I said it in my promo with Chaos Theory, and I meant it. I do think you're seeing teams like them and Chaos Theory because of Deception. And yeah, have we had a mixed record? Yes, but we're also playing elite teams. And again, the points are always a high scoring game. So I think, we showed that you don't always have to take a rookie and a veteran and put them together. That's a good formula. It works out for a lot of great successful teams. But Marisol and I last year really wanted a chance to show that we could hang as a brand new team with no previous experience. And even though we went 1-1 our first season, people have taken us seriously ever since. I feel like no one will count us out regardless of what our record is. Because we play with confidence, and with King Arthur, I think the thing that's going to be key is I feel very confident in the way Marisol and I been able to nail down and make our communication more efficient digitally. The day she and I would ever play in studio as a team, that's a complete non-issue. It's a completely digital issue, which is something all teams deal with. But because your communication is so limited, you have to be really efficient about it. I think the Chaos Theory match is a great demonstration of teamwork on both sides. I think Nick and Jacoby communicated really well, and I think Marisol and I hit that YA category, and we're like, all right, let's see how this goes. I'm not afraid of YA as a slice, but generally it wouldn't be my first choice. It's kind of broad, a lot of movies that are frankly not very good. Some good ones too, but you know what I'm talking about. I mean, who likes Divergent? Really, like I'm sorry. Who's out there? Who was buying tickets for Allegiant? By the time that came out, but like we navigated that, and she knew a couple off the bat. I knew a couple off the bat. We worked through the outsiders question. I got a 5-pointer, people. Put that in your books. No one likes to talk about when I get them. But in hindsight, like that was a very clear question, but it threw me off because I didn't hear Logia. I didn't hone in on Logia right away, and I heard the director and the actor who plays his son, which are kind of random sounding names. But she came in with the release date. I was pretty confident it was over the top, and then we nailed that 5. And then both getting Evening Star. It's playing on our own, but I just feel like that's a testament to where we've come as players. And with King Arthur, it's going to be a hell of a match. They statistically could beat any team playing. They could beat Shazam. They're that good. But this is only their second match, and that's an advantage for us. And we have built up our scar tissue as a team. We know how to take the hits. And, Newman's amazing so far, but I think you put some jinx karma out there when you say, I've never missed a 3rd round question. I really do. So I'm interested to see if he can keep that up tonight, and when he plays us, we'll see.
Absolutely. That is going to be a sight to see, and a great reason for everybody at home to make sure they buy those PPV tickets before it's too late. You're going to want to be on the cutting edge to see how this all shakes out. But we are now going to be bouncing on over to our fan-submitted questions as I pull up my phone and this little Google Doc I have right here. We've got some questions from the wonderful people over at patreon.com/JohnRoca. Don't forget to sign up over there so that way you can either write in your questions or come on the show later live, because we've got 2 different patrons, I think, right now that are slated to show up. But we've got, I think, only a handful of we only have 3 Discord questions and then a couple patrons, if that's all right with you, Adam.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, first off, we have Jeremy Miller, and I'll start over here. What's your favorite adaptation from Stephen King, whether it's a movie or a TV show?
I mean, the go-to is The Shining. It's hard to beat because it's one of my favorite films, although it's his most hated adaptation. So that's why I kind of don't. It counts, but it doesn't count. I love so many, but can I cheat and kind of say like 2?
Sure.
I want to point out an underrated one, not for people who've seen it, but for people who haven't. Needful Things, from 1993. Ed Harris is in it. J.T. Walsh, Amanda Plummer, a lot of good character actors. So that one I think is like one of my high overlooked Stephen King movies. But I would probably say Misery. Is really, really high up there because it is so raw and it is so rewatchable. And in the age of internet culture and troll culture and everything, fans flipping out over Star Wars and Batman every 5 seconds, that movie plays like complete dynamite now, like even more as a obsessive fan culture in the 21st century. That story seems so prescient now. And the book's great, and the movie is one of Rob Reiner's best. So I'd say Misery is probably right there up with The Shining.
Absolutely. It is weird to think about how many fans of different properties out there in the world watched Misery and saw it as an aspirational film. But, I mean, they fixed Sonic's face, so I guess, all power to him, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, between that and the Snyder Cut, we don't want to give them too much power.
That's fair. That's fair.
And I like that movie, but again, I just don't want to set a dangerous precedent.
More than fair, certainly.
Yeah.
You know, it's all fun and games when it's nice Sonic, but once we start getting into bigger Luke, that's when it's like, all right, let's maybe cut the cord on this.
Yeah.
That's one of the few things I know for sure about Star Wars is I've learned about bigger Luke, and I'll never stop laughing. Have you heard about this? Do you know about bigger Luke?
I've heard the phrase recently. Fill in the gaps for me here.
So bigger Luke is this idea of like how the Luke that we got in The Last Jedi was like some sort of pansy, not real Luke. And apparently there is a bigger Luke who's like taller and jacked. And it's like, oh no, then we're going to have real Luke come in because that Luke that we got clearly can't have been real. And so it's like, I think it's like after, well, obviously they never finished their goddamn rewrite. But like, I think they were saying that like, yeah, like after fake Luke gets like taken out, they introduce bigger Luke.
Well, that's interesting.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Well,
yep.
That'll haunt the internet for a while.
It sure will. Hey, it apparently is going to live forever in my brain, so I'm going to cry. But hey, what I'm not going to cry about is Chris Taylor, another friend of the show here. Has there been a horror movie you've been hyped for, but then after watching it, you were disappointed?
Oh, many times. Trying to think of a more recent example of something that really let me down. I'll say this because I'm a fan of a lot of horror remakes. I'm here for them. I think so. Like, I really, I think the originals are better, of course, for different reasons. But I think the Texas Chainsaw remake from 2003 and the Friday the 13th remake from 2009 are both really good horror movies. Really, really compelling, stressful, genuinely scary, and fun horror movies that understand those franchises. That's why I hate the 2010 A Nightmare on Elm Street so much. That movie, it's because I had faith in it at that point because I love the idea of Jackie Earle Haley playing Freddy Krueger. Because I'm here for a new Freddy Krueger. Like I love Robert Englund, but if we're going to continue the franchise in some capacity, you got to pass the torch. So I thought Jackie Earle Haley was a great choice. And then you see the movie, and the way they do his face. He has like little slits for eyes and a mouth, and he looks like a tater tot with like a kid drew a little face on it. He's not scary, and the movie has no like sense of tone. It's so boring. It's like a music video with no music. It's bad. So I love the Nightmare franchise, good and bad movies. I like Freddy's Dead. I'm a defender of that movie to the end of time because it's dumb as hell, but I love watching it, and it's really, really funny. And it's one of the it's the only one in the entire Nightmare franchise directed by a woman, Rachel Talalay, who also directed Tank Girl. Really cool double feature if you watch those. But anyway, my point is, I love that franchise. I wanted to love that movie, and I got out of it, and I'm like, They completely blew it with one of the most imaginative horror franchises where you could do anything, and they made that piece of shit. Sorry. Sorry.
You're allowed to curse here. I mean, I certainly felt that way and cursed even just by the casting of the new Mario movie. So I understand how sometimes when you recast it and you don't necessarily understand tone, it gets a little iffy.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there.
And then we have our third write-in Discord question from our dear friend Chris, aka Drunken Prayer. He went a little bit big picture on this. He wants you to, if you can, pitch a horror movie themed around coyotes, and you can say Cujo too if you need.
Well, honestly, I tweeted about it recently, and I brought it up in my promo. I discovered this old Disney like short film. Called A Country Coyote Goes Hollywood. It's delightful. Not easy to find. You can watch bits of it on YouTube, but I wanted to see the whole thing. It's adorable, but it was also, it reminded me how prevalent coyotes have been in Southern California. I mean, the Southwest in general. And coyotes are treated often, they're regarded by, especially people who live out in the country or where there are a lot of coyotes, as a menace. They'll, so there's, usually a lot of aggression towards coyotes, in terms of killing them and, getting them off your property. And I like the idea of those coyotes in the Southern California, say, who keep getting picked off by these angry, farmers and landowners and property managers. And they start to develop a creepy sentience where they're able to start becoming calculating and fighting back in ways that are really unsettling. And the idea of those coyotes, if you imagine all the coyotes in the greater Los Angeles area working together, it'd be maybe not Planet of the Apes level threat, but it'd be pretty freaking scary if they all like organized and actually fought back. So that's kind of my rough sketch of where I'd start.
Absolutely. I mean, if just like with those apes, if coyotes learn how to pick up guns, that's kind of game over.
I imagine them just with like turrets strapped to their backs, like running through the streets, and in Breaking Bad when Walt like has the guns come out and go like this out of the trunk. Like imagine that on coyotes running around.
Do we think that the natural endpoint for that franchise is them kind of winding up like the dogmen creatures from Tank Girl? Do we think that's the natural?
Yeah, I think that would be a natural evolution. They end up, walking, becoming bipedal, and yeah.
Oh, there's nothing scarier. Well, we also have two wonderful patrons.
Let me just ask two quick questions. Before we get the patrons in. Number one, and I'm going to push you on it. I'm going to ask for a prediction for both matches happening tonight. We've got a few hours. Doesn't matter. Just take a free swing. And secondly, your name has also been thrown around for kind of Roka's one last ride. There's kind of comments around saying your first match was a fluke. You got lucky with your questions, that kind of thing. Just want to know your thoughts on that. And would you be interested in that match at Spectacular if it's going to happen, of course?
I would. I'd be surprised if Roka would be. But honestly, with John Roka, I have a special place in my heart for John. Because I listened to his podcasts and stuff for years, aside from the Schmoedown, obviously, saw him in that plenty. But playing him was a genuine honor and really exciting. I would love to play him again in some capacity. There was originally the potential of a Rocky exhibition this year that Roka and I were going to be in, and they weren't able to get it worked out, unfortunately. But, oh, man, like if I could ever play John – and JTE too, because I know how good he'd be. I would love to play them in Rocky trivia someday. As far as the matches tonight, so I'll start with Newman and Horowitz. Okay, the thing with Newman and Horowitz is I think they've both gotten a really good sense of the game. So I think at this point they're going to be much more strategic than they would have been if they debuted against each other. They've also both become increasingly, as far as I can tell, increasingly more competitive. They seem really dialed into this, like really wanting to win their matches. So I think Horowitz has it in him to win. But I'll be honest right now, Griffin Newman is the rookie I'm looking at as, if Horowitz doesn't get it done, it would be so exciting for Deception to be the first ones to hand Griffin Newman a loss. So I think Griffin Newman's the one to beat, but I think it's a toss-up. I really do. Chance and Marisol, I think it's going to be one of the closest championship matches we've ever seen. I think sudden death is a distinct possibility. I think speed round is going to be really exciting with these two. They're both honestly really good at it. So I genuinely love Chance, and he is one of the best players to ever play this game. But I have unending belief in Marisol McKee to just keep making history. And I know how broad her knowledge is. I know the things she pulls that just make me go. So I have the complete faith in her, but she's even more than when she had to earn it against Ethan. She's going to have to earn it even more tonight. I know she's playing literally the other best player in singles right now, based on their current records this year. So I predicted McKee win, but possibly literally over Chance's dead body.
We got it, John.
Fair
We got the
enough.
prediction.
Yeah,
I didn't
there
think
we
we were
go.
going to do it, but
Hey, and those are my picks as well. So now I'm feeling extra good. But real quick, we do have not a lot of time left here on the air, so we're going to jump to our 2 patrons real quick for some lovely singular questions. Starting off with Canada Rocks, aka Ryko. How you doing?
Hello, gentlemen. Hey, how you doing? My younger self. Look at that.
Yeah, look at us.
And I'm 5'11", and this, I mean, you may be slightly better looking now, but you should have seen me 18 years ago. Okay, so first of all, the Needful Thing, I'm a huge fan of Needful Things, and it's a crime that Max von Sydow was never mentioned as one of the best devils. When they talk about great devils, he was awesome. Okay, so here's my question. So this year, like I've been watching you play, and it doesn't seem like you're anything's quite different about your gameplay, right? So how much of this year's record, and I still think you guys are going to go far in the teams, man. How much of this year's record is just luck, or is it something that you're doing different? It could be maybe the way you're getting into a match, or is it just the questions you're getting, right?
Yeah, there are a few. There are a few of the 5s I've missed that I do think were things I should have known. I wouldn't have pulled them, in the moment. But A Perfect Murder, Born Legacy, those are things I feel like I should have gotten right, and that comes down to being aware of, you got to constantly stir the pot. It's not about for me, it's not about academically studying spreadsheets of information. I get no joy from that. My engagement with movie trivia is through sessions with my team, which is not like, it's not like we have a drill sergeant and, it's like this completely rigid thing. We're having conversations as well about films. And that is where a lot of trivia gets locked in for me, is when we're engaged with people who love the thing we love. And when we're talking about all the different categories of the Schmoedown, a lot of that stuff will seep in over time. But what I've been trying to do a little bit differently is just be more aware of the overlaps in categories so that I can clear up some of these things that I shouldn't really be missing. Because A Perfect Murder is a really good question, because it's a remake / reboot of a Hitchcock film. And, it's a very mediocre movie. I rewatched it after losing the match, and I was like, but you don't have to watch the movie to know it's a remake, technically. It says it on the back of the case. It's just, I hadn't thought about that movie in a long time. And when you hear that answer, it's heartbreaking, because you're like, yeah, duh. But I feel like what I'm getting at is, that's an example of something I know I need to fix for the future. Whereas something like Patrick Bergen, I know I only would have gotten if I was like literally studying that movie and saying like, well, I maybe should memorize his obscure name because Barbara Babcock sunk me last year. So maybe I need to know this weird random name. That just was not something I was going to pick up anecdotally. So that's a miss I can live with, whereas Perfect Murder hurts more, if that makes any sense.
Oh, totally, 100%. I like you, I pictured him 100% in my head. I've seen that film. I've read the credits. I go, I'm never gonna get Patrick, whatever the heck his name is. It's that. Which one? I mean, Barbara Babcock is worse, right? Like, because
that's even harder. Yeah.
But that was a brutal 5-pointer. But and just to leave off, I'm so glad you won the teams match, because I don't know if you watched it back. I'm an aficionado of 70s films, because I'm old. But those were some of the easiest 70s questions I've seen in a while. Like, I remember when they used to ask, like, what's the name of the dog in Smokey and the Bandit, right? I mean, it's Fred, by the way. But I mean, they used to ask questions like that. And so do you find, so before we go, there seems to be a discrepancy with some stuff is harder the way they've been going harder. Do you think there's still some categories left over that they wrote before they changed the hardness level?
I could only speculate. I haven't, and I do agree with the overall argument of subjectivity. I do think that's valid. That said, Marisol and I are we would have swept that category 12 for 12. I think the easiest question was the Aristocats. That was the one because the cat was in the question more than once. But I think that was also the thing I like about that question though is with different players, they may have talked themselves out of Aristocats because it seemed too obvious. Like they're debating, wait, did Aristocats come out in the 60s though? Because it literally came out, I think, in 70 or 71. So like it was barely in the 70s. But yeah, I mean, like you feel that way sometimes. I felt that a little bit with Brendan, not that his questions were too easy, but like David Lynch finally gets spun. I get spun by my opponent. He goes perfect. And I have to sit there and just watch. Great. So that was a little demoralizing, but not because Brendan wasn't awesome in that match. It's because I wanted David Lynch. Don't regret sticking with Bruce Willis though, because I wanted to crack in that category for a while. But yeah, I mean, question discrepancy. Every once in a while, there will be questions will line up in a way where it feels there's a disparity to a few people, and I can appreciate that. I feel that way sometimes in the match, but it's a constantly evolving thing. In hindsight, maybe we should have given them martial arts because that's also very broad, and you never know when like a foreign film might sneak in there. But yeah, normally we went with 70s because we thought it might be a bit deeper in certain parts, and but they're good players and they use their heads, and they were smart with that Ryan O'Neal check down. So props to them as well.
Absolutely, props to them. Raiko, thank you so much for joining us. I'm
Good
sure
to see
we'll
you.
be seeing you next week as well.
And Boggs next week.
Oh,
Let's do it. We have an IG match. Me and Raiko.
That's
Very
right.
nice.
Next up, we have our second patron as well, already mentioned as well. It's the wonderful Chris, a.k.a. Drunken Prayer. There he is.
Oh, jeez, that camera's a bit high. There we go.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Adam, welcome back, man.
Good to see
Good to see
you.
you again. So, guys, I'll just cut straight to the question. I'm going to phrase this two ways. You can answer whichever way you want. Out of the big three horror villains, Freddy, Jason, Michael Myers, who's the best? Or you can answer, who's the GOAT of all horror movie villains?
For me, the GOAT of all horror villains is Count Orlok from Nosferatu. Because I've been obsessed with that movie since I was young, and that iconography is just taken over. Like the Nosferatu vampire is like a distinct like style of vampire, and I love that movie. But of modern day villains, it's hard not to go right to Freddy because of his personality and how creative that franchise is, and how clever he has to be in the dream world and stuff. But for me, and this comes down to personal attachment to the franchise, it's Michael Myers. He was the original masked killer, unless you count Leatherface, but Leatherface didn't like stalk people the same way. You came to his house, you're dead. Michael Myers hunts you down. I just love how in the original run of Halloween films, there's a shoddiness to the sequels too, and that's what's become charming over time is how the masks look goofy in certain movies, like 4 and 5 and 6. The mask looks really weird, but I love how the thing that's consistent is how unstoppable Michael is, without being completely comical like Jason can be sometimes in certain movies. And he, even in the bad Halloween movies, Michael always seems like a threat. And the thing that's scary about him is there's nothing. I mean, they try and make some supernatural stuff in 5 and 6 that doesn't really pan out, but for the most part, he's just a human being, and that's what's so scary about him. And even Rob Zombie's movies, I consider them fan films, licensed fan films, because they're just such radically different movies from what the other sequels are. But Michael's always scary in my opinion, and that's why I will always go see a Halloween movie.
That was one of the few good things about those remakes was they made Michael. I don't know who played him. He was absolutely massive.
Oh, Tyler Mane, Sabretooth.
Tyler Mane, that was it. Yes, yeah. Sabretooth.
Yeah, he's enormous. I'm like, he doesn't even need to be Michael Myers. The guy literally can walk through walls. Like,
that
he's
toilet
so
fight
big.
scene. The toilet fight scene in that is just brutal.
I know, but like it's scarier for me to like watch Nick Castle return to the role in Halloween 2018 and see a man in his 60s who's slighter in frame and build be able to rip people's faces off with his bare hands. That's scarier than seeing a professional wrestler do it.
I know which one I'd rather take on in a fight. I mean, neither of them really, but
Oh, goodness. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for the incredible question. Be seeing you next week, buddy, my fellow bald brother. And I'll say, speaking of fighting horror villains, if anyone hasn't checked out Ify Wadiwe on Twitter, he did a thread about all of the different Halloween slashers he could take in a fight. It's phenomenal. It's one of the best things I've seen because he really goes into detail, and it's incredible.
The fan film I want to see is I want to see John Wick fight all the slashers simultaneously.
Ooh, yeah.
Like someone needs to make that fan film. Like good costumes, good choreography. You can make it a tight 10-minute fan film where he's fighting Jason, Michael, Freddy, Pinhead, Leatherface. Like, it'd be awesome.
That's got to happen in the same universe as that prompt tweet I saw where people were like, all right, who do you have between Dominic Toretto and Cthulhu? Like, that's definitely in that same universe.
Well, my fantasy Cthulhu movie is that's where I want the Godzilla franchise to go. I want him to just fight Cthulhu in the end.
There we go. Hey, maybe Cthulhu was responsible for Hollow Earth. It makes it whatever Hollow Earth was. Could have been
They're brushing right up against Cthulhu. He's public domain. Just put him in the movie. Who cares?
Right.
You don't even need there's no copyright on it.
Oh, goodness. Everybody at home who's a director, start making it happen now. Adam, thank you so much for joining us from your hotel room. We really appreciate it. Thank you for 2 incredible performances this week as well. We're really appreciative of you coming back onto the show. Is there anything you would like to plug real quick before we bid you adieu to prepare for one heck of an evening?
Yeah, if you can't get last minute, if you can't get to New York last minute to see tonight's match, you can become a patron or go to the schmoedownlive.com and just pay for the stream and watch it live with all of us. It's the first live event in a long time where it's happening on the internet while we're recording it. So I think that's very special and exciting. So people should check that out. And then next week I'll be back. I do Why Are We Like This with Video Drew every other week. And next week we're going to get into the Blair Witch franchise. I'm doing a revisit of all 3 films, and I'm currently playing the video game on PlayStation 4. So I'm just excited. I'm a big fan of the Blair Witch franchise. It's a weird, like messy franchise with all these weird spin-offs. So we're going to get into Blair Witch next week.
There we go. Oh, I forgot about that game.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that like a pretty widely celebrated game too? Like people are like,
yeah,
it actually slaps.
Yeah, so it came out on PC. It's like a first-person adventure game, and you have a German Shepherd companion, which is awesome. And you're just wandering the woods from the locations of. I think it's mostly based on the first and third film, because those are the ones that are more connected. 2 is kind of just thrown to the wolves now, and I have a special spot in my heart for 2 because it's so weird. It's bad, but I'm barely into the video game, so we'll see where it goes. I'm not going to beat it by next week, but I just want to play through enough of it to tell people about it because I love horror video games. I don't get to play many games nowadays, but I made time and I played Resident Evil Village because I had to, and I loved it.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have you on for sure next time after you've beaten those 2, just to be like, all right, what was the verdict? Did the dog make it? I hope the dog makes it. Oh, please.
I'm fine with my character dying repeatedly as long as the German Shepherd's okay.
Right? Well, thank you so much for joining us, Adam. We will let you get back to your lovely Saturday in lovely New York. You have a good one, man.
Take care, guys.
Thank you, man.
You too. Oh, gosh. Absolute gem of a human being. Very excited for him and the whole Corruption family for what's sure to be an amazing night. But I didn't know that we actually have a heart out for this episode of the show. So what we're going to do real quick is we're going to kind of lightning round our picks for today. If our producers want to come on screen.
Let's get the boys in, yeah.
I'm going to read off these standings real quick. You already know what the deal is. Mike and I are at the bottom. Mike with 29 points, me with 72 points. I'm catching up to Soul, who's got 78. Meanwhile, Sean has 81 points, and Boggs has 88 points. So, there's some spacing going on right now. But again, we got to do this pretty quickly. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to do a little bit of a raised hand situation first and foremost. talking about these two pay-per-view matches. Don't laugh at me. You sprung this on me, all right? I'm adapting.
Well, we already put our picks in for the pay-per-view, so
That's right. Well, and that's why I'm going to start by asking this. For our picks for the pay-per-view, in case anybody missed last week, every single one of us did happen to have Griffey Nooms taking the win over Josh Horowitz. Meanwhile, Boggs is the sole person right now to have chance beating Marisol. I'm going to ask right now, does anybody want to change their picks, or do we all feel good? Just a thumb up if you're feeling good about your picks.
I always feel good about my
I'm good.
picks.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm
There
sticking.
we go. Fair enough.
That doesn't
I got
sound very
thumbs up.
confident, Boggs.
Yeah, I'm not. But
Well,
you know,
hey, you've
I'm
got
back
three
in.
other matches to feel confident about, hopefully. Alex Damon going up against Molly Damon. It's the Damon affair. We're going to see if this former Star Wars champion has what it takes to go up against Molly, who she got a win over Adam Witch. She had a solid match against Laura Kelly. So rapid fire, just give me those. No, you know what? I'm going to stick to my guns. We're doing a hands-up situation. Right now, who has Adam Collins winning the match? Let me
Adam
just-
Collins.
Yeah, do you have him winning? No, Alex Damon, whatever. Whatever.
Alex.
You made me this way, Sean. You made me this way. You said, hey, by the way, you got to be done this quickly. So now
Yeah,
I'm
so
adapting. Who has
Alex
Alex
Damon.
Damon winning?
yes, yeah, God damn.
What about you, Mike?
I got Molly.
Oh, there we go. All right. You think she's going to be able to take down Alex this time around? Do you think it's just because we've seen somebody draw blood from Alex? Is that what it is?
It's Molly's time to shine.
There we
I
go.
also want to see. I want to see Molly against Nikki. I want to see that match, but I do think
Also that.
That would be a great one for sure. All right. Well, we've got Mike picking Molly Damon, and then we've got four of us going for Alex because Soul also has Alex. But yeah, definitely, this is, again, one of those ones where just because it's a clean sweep doesn't mean we're counting out Molly Damon. It's going to be a good one. But I do think he's the Star Wars champ, previous, long time running. I think he'll get it again. But next up in the teams division, we have the press room representing the Quirky Mercs going up against the old guard of the Den. We talked about this a little bit already. I'm going off of Soul's picks, honestly. Raise your hand if you think the press room is going to be taking this one over the Den and the old guard. It looks like it's just... Oh, no,
I'm getting
there
press
we go. We got Boggs pulling it out right there at the end. Makes sense. You know, Perry, she's always good to play upset. She's got solid knowledge. And Josh Horowitz, he's been killing it this season. Mike, any final thoughts on why you think the Den of the veterans, Riley and Duralde, are going to be able to clinch it?
Riley and Duralde play off each other really well, so I'm giving it to the old guard.
That's fair. Yeah, they're seasoned. We just saw Mark take a win over Liz Shannon Miller, which I thought was not a huge upset, but just goes to show definitely don't count these two out. We'll see how that match goes. And then finally, Dan Murrell of the Dungeon going up against Lon Harris. This is another one of those round 2 singles tournament matches. Right now we have Soul picking Lon Harris, so I'll ask, raise your hand if you have Lon Harris winning this match. Uh-oh, Lon. I mean, look, we all love Lon here. I think we can all agree Lon's a great guy, but I also think we all seem to be in agreement that Dan Murrell just happens to be the debated GOAT. Obviously, him and Roka are in the conversation there. But yeah, it's going to be a tough one for sure. I think Lon, you know, I didn't think Lon was going to beat King Khan, so like, dude could definitely pull it out, but I am going to throw in my lot with Dan Murrell. But hey, gang, that's a heck of a week for matches. It's going to be crazy. We're going to be talking about the 5 big ones next week. Expect a show at the regular standard time of 3 p.m. Pacific next week as we dive into these matches. Don't forget also, if you're able to, any Streamlabs, super chats, always appreciated, but also join that Patreon, patreon.com/John Roca. You can come on the show like Reiko and Chris did to ask a question. You can also hop in the Discord to ask some questions as well. We always appreciate the support. And don't forget to leave comments underneath the episode as well, because next week Soul is going to be back joining us. She's going to be reading them out. She's going to do such a better job than I did, if we're just being honest. Soul's truly just the best of us. But hey, you three are pretty good too. Let's go around the horn. Sean, starting with you, is there anything you'd like to plug?
Plug us getting out of here. But follow me on Twitter.
Mike, do you have anything to plug?
Let's just go.
Let's check out the Basement Lounge Thursday.
There we go, Bugs. What do you have to plug? Is it Pop Culture Universe?
It's something like that. And also, I agree with Kanda Roxanne in the chat. Sean is looking a little bit evil today. But yeah, same time, well, usual time next week, 3 p.m. PST. Thanks for Adam Collins. You know, he's in New York, you know, going to the live event. So he did us a favor today by coming on the show, but very much appreciated.
That's right. And as folks are mentioning in the chat, 7 Eastern Standard, 4 p.m. Pacific is when this pay-per-view is going down tonight. We'll all be watching. We'll be excited to talk about it next week. As for me, look up John Barr. I'm in a couple places. You see the lower third. You see my name there. And don't forget to follow Soul as well. Her handle is Soul Govan. That is going to be it, though, for this episode of the Ultimate Schmoedown After Show. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next week. Have a good night or day, because, yeah, we're still early.
Oh, yeah.